everybody. It's Holly Burns of Holly Burns Psychic. Welcome to my channel. Tonight, I'm going to go over my Sasquatch log from my first location where I lived with the clan 24/7 in 2016. This was my first clan. So this is getting into more of my personal experiences that I had with the entire clan, with the entire family. So I can't wait to share all these mystical experiences with you so you can get a feel and share along with me some of my unbelievable experiences. So let's get into it. And this location was at the border of Wisconsin and Minnesota, and it was bordered all four sides without any neighbors. It was fantastic. Definitely a pre-life soul agreement. Definitely decided upon and designed before I came into this lifetime that I would get to know this clan, my first clan, in this wonderful, mystical location. Oh, let me just describe how this place was laid out and why it was so mystical. It had no neighbors right by me on all four sides. It was 20 acres. To the east is DNR land, which is Department of Natural Resources, so wild land, and this trail called the Ice Age Trail, bordered right at the edge of the most eastern horse pasture. So people were walking and using the trail, and the Sasquatch people were walking and using the trail, and the Sasquatch people were spying on the people walking and using the trail. They're loving that. Then to the north, DNR forest, butted right up to the property line. Right there, like right to the edge of my horse's corral. Started DNR land like 15 feet past the corral. To the west was another patch of woods. And to the south was a big, huge horse pasture. Again, open land owned by this property owner. So they had a big buffer zone all the way around them with either their own pastures or DNR land. So it was just like mystical. The Sasquatches could just come all over it, run all over it, and they had nobody watching them, nobody seeing them. It was just fantastic. Another thing that's really mystical about this property is that there was a patch of woods in between, right in the middle of the property. There's the house, a horse pasture, and then this patch of woods. And then on the other side of that, another horse pasture. And then on the other side of that was the Ice Age Trail and the woods. So this little patch of woods in between the two horse pastures was probably, 3 acres of woods. It was all really mostly big, tall trees. Well, not mostly, but lots of little trees growing too, but it didn't have a lot of thick underbrush. It was just trees. So you could see through the woods. A lot of woodland area in Minnesota has such heavy underbrush that you cannot even get through it. And there was a part of that woods that was so heavy you can't even walk. But this other area was just not. It was just really super easy to walk through woods with the big, tall, mature trees so that the underbrush didn't grow there. And so I could see through it as well. So I could line up my eyes like this or like this. And I could see a pathway where perfectly, I could see right through. And I could tell where the hotspots were by feeling the energy. And I would study them in the daytime. So I knew where to look at nighttime. So I was kind of trained and I knew where the most probable spots they were going to be were, because I could see the trees and why they picked those spots as probable spots, because they would weave other trees up against those trees. And then I would also have a sighting at night. Then I'd go in the daytime and go, okay, watch for that tree. Exactly what tree is that? Then I'd go out in the next morning and go, oh yeah, yep, that's totally the tree I'm feeling the twingy energy on right now. Like all day long, I feel the twingy, I feel the residual energy. And now I walk up to it and see, oh yeah, they've got this big tree here and here, right at the 8-foot height. It's like, yeah, this is one of their peeping trees. So I could kind of get that ability to study everything. I had a lot of sightings because of this patch of woods right here in my yard that hooked up to the DNR lands. They could come right down in the patch of woods. They could escape when they want to. They had lots of trees to hide behind. They felt safe because they were far enough away from me. But I was very intriguing to watch because I had horses and cats and I was all by myself. So it was great for them. And it was great for me too. So that's kind of the setup. I was going through my Sasquatch log. I started a little Sasquatch log on my notes app in my phone. And I just thought, well, maybe it'd be fun just to share them with you and just read through a few of them so you can kind of get an idea of what it was like to really just be there and walk out and have these experiences with them. So I'm going to go through some of these entries. This clan's favorite thing to do with me was to play cat and mouse. I'd walk out the door, bam, they would do something. Then when I had my back turned and I'm doing something else, like working with my horses, bam, they would do something. Like they're always trying to get me, hey, look here, hey, look here. They would play this game with me. And then I'd stop and I'd look over there and then they'd make another noise when I give them my attention. So they're loving interacting with me in that manner, and I loved it back. They would do this all the time. And I wrote down several of my entries. On June 4th, at 7:30, I was getting off my horse, and in the far meadow, I heard a weird call to the north. So, like, pay attention to those weird calls. People always go, oh, that's a bird. Oh, that's an owl. That's a squirrel. Not necessarily. Their favorite thing to do is to make animal noises. Now, you can tell the vibrational difference between them doing a call because your pineal gland in your brain is going to recognize that energy, not as a bird. Because vibrationally, they're not birds. And so vibrationally, the energy attached to that call is going to reach your body, and your body's going to read the vibrations. And your pineal gland's going to go, that's something pretending to be a bird. And so you're going to go, hey, what was that? So if they jump out to you, pay attention. Just put it in the folder over here that says probably a Sasquatch. It's better to be more aware than not aware enough. Okay, it's not going to hurt anything by going, could have been a Sasquatch. Stick it in the could have been a Sasquatch file and just keep going about your day. Because if you start to see a repetitive pattern, that's when you start to know they're around you, is the repetitiveness of what they do. Amongst the owl calls, they made a monkey noise and a screeching noise. Well, last time I heard, owls don't make monkey and screeching noises. Then on 11/14 of the same night, I heard some weird sounds that could be people or could be howls coming from the west side of the property in the woods. And then I heard a howl a few seconds long. Didn't sound like normal people sounds. On June 5th, I said, I just sit down on my porch and I hear in that same direction a songbird's tweet that would normally be in the daytime. The time was 10:30 p.m. I did a lot of stuff out on the front porch of that house, which faced to the south. So I'd go out and I'd sit out there with my computer and I'd work, and they would be right there on either side of me, and they would play cat and mouse on the east and west side. And that has a story coming up, really cool thing that happened in the east woods as well. That's the ones with the big tall woods, and I would be able to just look into the woods. That was the best woods ever. So this night, they love to do something as soon as I'm not paying attention to them, to be like, hey, look over here. And it's like, it's the teenagers. It felt like there was always 2 or 3. And also they did the announcement call every time I stepped out of the house. So I walk out and there would be somebody in the woods to have an announcement call. Like, here she comes. She's stepping outside. Beware. And then there'd always be an answer back. So they would do like a owl call, doo-doo-doo, doo-doo-doo. Or in the daytime they'd do like a bird chirp in the daytime, you know, chirp. And I'd be like, that's them. I could always just tell. And then someone would answer back from a little ways over there, like a couple seconds later, right? So they do this all the time. So I always knew I'm being watched. I'm like a fish in a fishbowl. Like, seriously, I felt like a fish in a fishbowl. I'm by myself, me and the Sasquatch people. Now, at that time, I was not working with them telepathically directly like I do now because I didn't know I could. I found out I could 4 months after this. But that's okay. That's how it was supposed to be. Oh, they just said, you were supposed to have this experience in this manner. So like just really in my own bubble. Summer solstice, I hear an owl call at 6:19 p.m. They did that here too. I was on a trail ride with my friend. We were at Crowhasson Park in Minneapolis. We stopped for a break down at the lake. From across the lake at 7 p.m., an owl call. I looked at my friend and I said, do you think that was an owl? She goes, nope. I was like, it's such great confirmation. See, that's what I'm saying is if you're by yourself, you're going to question yourself. If you have someone else with you, you're more likely to trust yourself because if the other friend feels the same thing, it's like, now my ego doesn't jump in and go, that's probably just an L. So it's great to bring someone else along with you. I didn't have anybody. This was my first summer, my first experience. I've known the Sasquatches here for a week, trial by fire. We played cat and mouse because I didn't have the type of interaction that I do now. I was just working with my spirit guides. So my spirit guides were giving me translations of what they were doing and saying. They were the go-between. So this was a really unique experience for me to be around them so much and just be in the pure energy of one another. It's such a gift. It's just the most mystical year of my life. I wrote down, I stepped out of the barn at 11:30 that 20th of June. So we're talking summer solstice. And once again, as soon as I faced my body towards the backwoods, I get a daytime bird call coming from over there at 11:30 at night. That's what they did all the time. Then on July 30th, I saw eyes in the woods when I was walking out of the barn. So like, they're always like, oh, whoops. And they would like turn away. All they have to do is turn their head, and then I can't see them because they're right there in the woods. But my light will just see the tree trunks. And I was shining a light, like a bright light. But all I have to do is turn their head, and I couldn't see them. They had been watching me work in the barn, and they were a little surprised when I walked out. They're like, oh, whoops, didn't know she was going to be there. And they were only like 75 feet away. Then, here's August 1st. I'd been working out on the porch since 6 p.m. And now it's 11 p.m. and I decided to get the horses in for the night. As I came around the side of the house, I saw two sets of eyes in the woods. So two of them watching me from the woods. Once again, it watched me from the tree, and then it darted, like it jumped. I remember that clear as day. It jumped, like, oops, I gotta get out of here. And then, boom, peeked out again, like 50 feet further back from a different tree. It's so cute. It was so cute. Like, oh, a little too close, but I'll feel safer back here. And then they always have to peek out. And so if you just stand, and you're super patient, and you have a light, and you know they're there, if you stand long enough, I always find that curiosity gets the best of them, and they just have to peek out and see what you're doing. I love that. So that's what they did. And then when they peeked out, they were brave because they were further away. And I would just lock up. I just locked eyes. I stood there and we both stared at each other. Then they disappeared and I heard a branch cracking to the north, which is their gateway connection to the DNR land. So they were like, oh, whoops, she's doing chores now. We better get out of here. But they watched me do chores all the time. They didn't run away. But sometimes if I stare at them for a really long time, I would make them a little uncomfortable to the point where they'd be like, we're heading out now. And that's the same thing that just happened to me here a couple months ago. I was interacting with the teenager in this family here. They have 3 boys. The oldest one is an older teenager. And he and I were interacting in the woods. And I was just like staring. And I started walking forward, 10, 15 feet. Then I stopped. And he was just like, no, you're just a little too close. I just don't want to be this close. And he just exited. Boom. Off he went. If you're a little too close, they'll only do it for so long. And then they're over it. Then on Tuesday, August 2nd, I walked outside the house to do night chores. And out of the corner of my light, I saw a quick blip and a set of eyes in the exact same area once again. One set only though. So the same exact spot, only one set tonight. Then I put maybe 2. But I would say one busybody who was doing a lot of peeping at me. Then I stood in the spot where I could see to the depths of the hotspot area, which is towards the back of that little piece of woods. And I shone my light through there. And sure enough, out they came to see what I was doing. I knew they would not be able to resist. Then I tried calling my usual calls to the horses. And the instant I started to sing, here, kitties, here, Geppetto, here, Tom Tom, he immediately came out from behind the tree with his eyes in full view. So they recognized when I'm calling my animals. Those were my cats. So I was calling my cats and they're like, oh, what's she doing? She's calling cats. Like they come to watch. And so it was great. I could get them to come a lot when I was doing my night chores. And then I put down, I came and went a couple of times to do a couple of quick things. And I forgot the water running in the water tank. So I went back to shut off the water and then I retested the water so it looked to him that I was doing my normal routine and not watching for him. So that's what I would do sometimes is I would like do busy work a little bit to give them time to come back and watch me again and I would kind of lure them in, not realizing that at the time, but they probably heard every single one of my thoughts. They probably knew everything I was thinking, but I forget that a lot. I get in my own head. I do that even now. Like tonight at my home now, I was at my other location here with clan number 2 here in Minneapolis where my horses are. And I was cleaning my horse bridle and I was outside. It was like 11 o'clock at night and I'm spraying oil on the horse thing, listening to a podcast, cleaning my bridle, standing outside. And I'm thinking, this is probably curious for them. I would think they would be watching me do this. I can feel it. They're around here watching me. This is the clan that I'm really good friends with. And I just thought, God, Holly, you're an idiot. Like, I'm sure like they can hear your thoughts. Like they know that you're thinking, they're probably watching you. So it's like, I have no privacy with them. You have 0 privacy. You have no thought to yourself. They know everything you think. So I sometimes feel like an idiot. That's one thing I kind of like about humans not being so telepathic is you can have some private thoughts that you cannot have with Sasquatches. Then I tried the cat calls again and I got nothing. Okay, so here's the cat and mouse thing. He's watching me Then he peeks out from behind the tree where I'm doing the cat calls, and then he disappears. So I'm trying to bring him back again. I'm trying to see him again. I'm trying to draw him back to me again. I know he's around, but he's not letting me see him. So then I pretend I'm playing in the water, and I'm doing the water tank because I had the water on. So I took it off, did a few things, tested, pretending I was testing the water, because at that time I was testing my water to make sure if it was alkaline or not for my one horse. Then I tried the cat calls again, nothing worked. Then I went back out after a few minutes, and I just stood there with the light fixed on that spot. And after several minutes of standing perfectly still, I saw two eyes way back through the underneath section of the downed branch, deeper back in the woods, but still looking right at me. I saw him turn his head, and it looked exactly like they move, not with a mobile neck like a human, but like someone wearing a neck brace. I wrote that down, that they moved like they had a neck brace on their necks, like this, instead of like this. When they turned their head, they would like turn like this. And I looked exactly like they had a neck brace on. It was really interesting. And I didn't know that at the time, that they couldn't move their neck. I just wrote down that they had a neck brace on. And it said, I could tell he was darting around the trees the whole time. So what they would do is look at me, and they would turn their eyes to the side, and I couldn't see them anymore. And then they would disappear. And then bam, they show up again behind a different tree. And I have no idea how they got to the other tree. They made no noise. Not 1 ounce of noise. I don't know how they can do that without me seeing them. I have a light. I have a light on the woods. And still, even with a bright light, a bright beacon light, I could not see them move. They're so black that they just look like the rest of the forest if they're not looking at you. It's crazy how they can move around. Also, they can move at lightning speed. Shoo! Boom! They're there. I saw one once move 50 yards in less than a second, and then turn around again and look back at me from a further distance where he felt safe. And I was like, how did you just do that? I'll tell more details on that in a different video, because that's from a different time. Then I wrote down, so they were very high sometimes, and then several feet shorter most of the time, but still the height of a normal adult, except the eye shine was way bigger and further apart than a human's could be. So they would be crouching, but when they're really high, I could tell like they were standing, but most of the time they were crouching. The time when his eyes were very far back in the forest from below the giant falling branch at the end of the night, he and I just stared at each other for the longest time. Just stared at each other, not moving back and forth. At the longest time, just stared back and forth, not moving, just watching each other equally. That was one of the coolest experiences of my life. I remember that like yesterday. It was so great. One of the most beautiful experiences to just lock eyes and just have a really prolonged stare down. After I decided it was time to go to sleep, the calls started in from the south part of the woods with answers to the north. That's what they always do. As soon as I decide to go in, that's what they do. They would try to keep me out there. I'd start walking to the house from the barn. Well, I have one in here. I'll get to that one in the log. Okay, Thursday, August 4th. I investigated the owls' sounds and found the source of them. Real owls. I could see one up in the tree by the barn. I had eye shine from way, way back in the woods. It's like they have reacted to my white light and stayed deeper in the forest where they don't think the light will show them. There's this one spot where it seems like whoever stare never moves, like it's an animal bedded down for the night, or it's a squatch watching me from their comfort spot. Friday, August 5th, I saw two eyes back in the exact same spot in the woods again tonight. So like I said, there was this magical patch of woods. There was the perfect cover for them, and they felt comfortable peeping at me from there, and I could see them over and over again. There was this one spot in the back of the woods where they could see me and I could see them, but they had a big tree to hide behind, and they would go back there a lot. So August 5th, I saw two eyes back in the exact same spot in the woods again tonight, and it looked at me for a long time, several seconds, or I could keep it in my light, and then it would not show up for a little bit, and then show up again, like it was watching me, but try to not let itself be shined on, but it was there. And it wasn't letting me. It was in the same spot, I think. This is like the third time I've seen eyes in that spot. So we're kind of playing cat and mouse. Trying to peep at me. I'm trying to look at him. He's trying to make sure that he can watch me, but not show up. And so we did that back and forth quite a bit. And then, this was really cool. I was painting in this little building I called the Tiki House. And I came out from doing that, and it was after dark, the same night on Friday, August 5th. And I saw a little bit of an eye 10 feet off the ground in the hotspot area area in the woods, but never again after that in that spot. But the two were still in the faraway spot, the two eyes. Oh yeah, I remember this. I had been painting in this building all night with windows and the lights on. Well, of course, they're going to be watching me. They can go to the woods and they can see me perfectly. Once again, fish in a fishbowl. So I came out of the building to go do the horses or go see my cats or something, do something at night here. It's pitch dark. And I saw a set of eyes 10 feet off the ground in that hot spot in the woods. There's this one hot spot kind of back where they could watch me safely from this little group of trees that they liked. Not again, though, that night. So I saw them, then not again in that spot. And then two of them were in the faraway spot. Or two eyes. I'm sorry, I corrected myself. I said two eyes I meant. So there was one closer up, 10 feet off the ground, and then another one further away. And they were both watching me do my painting. It was 10 feet off the ground and one flips. It was really high off the ground. I'd say 10 feet. I went in the house for a minute. I came out to call the cats in, and the cats were running down the lane towards the barn. The only time they do that is if something kind of freaked them out, like the Sasquatches, or the Sasquatches shoo them home, like, home you go. Your mom's calling you. So here came the cats. And then I wrote down, as soon as the cats got back, I immediately heard a major vocalizations starting in the woods. I felt like they were saying, shoo, 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 kittens, your mom's bringing you food. Go home now. Then I wrote down, I moved 20 to 30 feet each time. The vocalizations in the woods were coming from the hotspot area. There's this one spot in the north section by the DNR land where they were always there. Well, they were vocalizationing from there, and then they would move about 20 to 30 feet and then do a different vocalization, moving to the south until about the fourth time they stay put at the very south part of our edge of the pasture. And several times it made noises that sound like a bird call. So they were always moving around in there, and they would like tantalize me and play with me from there. And then they made a cawing sound at night that sounds like a bird that only call at dusk. Because I looked some of these birds up, and they would make cawing sounds for birds that only call at dusk, but it's 11:30 at night. And then in between, once in a while, it would throw in something that sounded like it was letting me know it wasn't really that bird. And it was a funny, loud, like really loud. One time it sounded like a monkey, more like a monkey. Then one time it's rude like a human screaming several times. One time it sounded like an ape, more like a monkey. And one time it sounded like a human screaming. Several times it sounded like a human screaming. I've been playing loud music. So I have rock and roll music, and I've been singing as I was working. And it seemed like it was telling me, oh yeah, I remember this now. Oh my God, that's right. Okay. I had been working with loud music on when I was painting that tiki house, and they were screaming to like mimic my loud rock music. So they were telling me that they liked my loud rock music. And I had been singing it. And so they were telling me they were listening to my music and hearing me sing really loud. And it was doing the same thing back to me, mimicking the loud rock and roll music back to me. It was pretty funny. It sounded like this. I loved it. That was the bestest ever. And then sometimes it sounded like a human in distress, and sometimes it sounded like a combination between a bird and a dog howling. Sometimes it would stay in for much longer than the normal bird call from that bird. I don't know what animal it was, but it just seemed like it was a squatch saying, I'm sick of you putting your light on me all the time. Knock it off. This went on for, I would say, 5 to 10 minutes. And I went out into the yard, and they're saying, we know you're just doing it because you love us and want to see us. Yeah, I just keep telling them, I'm like, I just want to see you. I just want to interact with you. Like, you're just so cool. I just love seeing you. And like, you don't have to stare at my light. Like, you got a lot of land you can hang out on. You don't have to stay there and look at my flashlight. But if you want to, hey, I'm here. I'm not forcing them into a corner and blinding them with my light. Then that went on for 5 to 10 minutes. So I went out in the yard and walked over to where it could see me. And I could see it. And I stood over there for some time. Then I decided I was done listening to it and I wasn't going to pay it any more attention. And I turned to walk back to the house. And as soon as I got behind the bushes where it would not be able to see me anymore, it made a monkey sounding noise. For an instant, it seemed like it was saying, hey, you don't leave me when I'm trying to get your attention. I remember that very clearly. That's exactly what they were doing. It was the best. And I just would laugh. I'm like, you guys, I'm never going to get anything done. I can't just stay here and play cat and mouse with you all night. So they call me back like, hey, you don't have permission to leave. We didn't say you could go. and my big beacon light went dead just a few minutes before that. So I didn't have the ability to shine my light over there and see what they were doing. Also, my phone was full, so I could not record any more video on my phone either. So I couldn't record it. I said there was 2 spots where they could probably see me, the southern spot, and then get a spot where they might be able to see through to the front porch. Tomorrow, I'm going to go and inspect the spot on the north side of the woods. I keep seeing their eyes every night. I got to go see if it correlates with that area, but I think it's a hotspot on the other side of the woods, which it was. And so then on August 8th, I wrote down, the horses were back in the south pasture, and I saw eyes in the woods at the same places, looking or peeping at me, it seemed to be. The horses didn't want to come back via the road. They ran to the far fence. I'm seeing correlations with them not coming in the late evenings. Because I was like, why aren't the horses coming in? Why aren't they coming in for water? Why are they staying out there? And I figured out Sasquatches were having fun with the horses from the woods. I believe they were cloaked because I could never see them there and I couldn't see anything, but the horses were freaking out and they would not go past the entrances to get back to the barn. They didn't want to pass by or through the woods. And that was how they had to come back. They had to cut through the trail through the woods that I had made for them. And so last night I was wondering if the Sasquatches were playing tricks on me, messing with the horses when I call them in. So they don't want to run by them. Or actually so they can get close to them when they run by. I called and called and called and they would not come in. But they seemed like they wanted to. They were trying to go through the gate instead of running down the road. I remember this. Every night they would be like, I would get them as far as the entrance to the woods. And then they would be like, no, we can't go through there. No, we're not coming. And so I would have to put a halter, a lead rope, pull them past the gate, get them past the point of no return. And then they would run really fast down the woods to the barn. Like, phew, thanks for coming to get us. And that right to the north of there is all the DNR land. And I felt like the teenagers were playing games right there at the entrance where they would be cloaked and I couldn't see them, but the horses can. And the horse is like, we're not going by there. So they would do that to me all the time. And on August 16th, I wrote down warning signs in the far middle woods like an owl. And then woo-hoo! Then a subtle wood knock from the woods. Then Jazz freaks out and snorts and runs around the paddock and looks to the west. And then he does it again. The following is some footage from a different time, several years later, my current clan, where the 2 teenage boys were helping me out with chores. This is going to be another video sometime. Well, I'll explain this footage in detail, but I thought it could be a stand-in for what Jazz was doing the other day, because this is the same horse, the black and white one, and they're doing the same thing because of the same thing in this video. So they're reenacting what happened to them earlier. Snorting, running. They don't do that for no reason. Looking that way. You know who's there. You guys, check out this red set of eyes in the background of this video that I just noticed right now when I was getting it ready for you guys. This looks exactly like my other Sasquatch video of Tatankowa's eyes. They are not settling down at all. Let me let them out and risk being killed here. Hold on, okay, just a minute. Okay, just a minute. 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 Don't. Just a minute. Just a minute. Okay. Out you go. Shit. They are done with whatever was in there. They are done. So obviously the sounds I heard were not animals because my horse Jazz freaked out and snorted and ran around in a circle. Then I wrote down that I was talking to the neighbor and he was hearing screams at the night right outside their home in the middle of the night. And they went, what the hell was that? I'm like, well, I know what that was. So I told them that it was Sasquatches. So they became aware. Well, right behind their backyard, I found the most ginormous blind, 20 feet from where their grass ends. On their backyard. And yes, I don't really have neighbors. I didn't really have neighbors, but they were just a little bit down from the yard. So we had woods across from our yard, but then down a little bit was their yard. And their yard butted up to our woods. And there was a huge blind right there. I had a sighting there too, which I'll get to in a later video. We had a get together and Chris and I decided to bring over the thermal imaging camera so that we could point it at the woods at the hotspot and see if we could get anything because people watching is their favorite thing to do. So we were in the front yard and it was early evening and we were setting up the camera and all of a sudden I heard an owl call to the east answered with a whoop to the west. Like whoop, 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 whoop. And I went, did you hear that? And he's like, no, I didn't hear anything. But he was really working on getting the camera set up. So he was like really concentrating on that. Well, when I heard the whoop over to the east, I looked over there, obviously. And I saw a dome light go on in a car that was parked over there. And then the dome light go back off again. Right where I heard the whoop. And that was right by a hotspot over there where I know they always are. Because they can see into the front of the house from over there. So that's their spot to watch the front of the house. And they have an area where they could be outside, kind of high up, kind of a higher up deck. And so they could watch them from there really easily. And so I just kind of went, okay, well, they're watching the party. Hopefully we'll get some good footage on the thermal imaging camera tonight. Well, about 4 hours later, a guest at the party came up to me and said, hey, did you know that Kurt is freaking out right now because he saw something that totally freaked him out? I'm like, no, I haven't heard anything about it. He goes, well, you better go talk to him because I think it was a Sasquatch. I'm like, what? And so I went to talk to him and he was just shaken up. He was just completely shaken up. And he says, I went out to my car to get my phone charger cord. And I was in my car, grabbing my cord, when I looked up and there was a set of eyes watching me. And I went, yep, that's a Sasquatch. And he said, I was so freaked out. I ran over I stopped the car and I got over there as fast as I could. And I'm like, all of a sudden I put two and two together. I'm like, I saw that. I said, what time was that at? And he told me the time. And I'm like, I was out in the front yard when that happened. I saw your dome light in your car. I saw you getting your cord out of your car. And he's like, really? I'm like, yeah. I said, I heard a whoop over there right when that happened to you. I know that they were watching you. And he was just like freaked out. And I just thought, that's so funny because I'm like this small statured 5'4" woman, lived there by myself all week. And I'm like totally fine. And he's this big, tall, young man, totally strong, can protect himself. And he's just freaked out, scared. So the next morning he stayed over at the house. And the next morning we reenacted it. And I said, okay, you go back, where were the eyes? And he's like, right there. And I'm like, oh. Textbook. I measured it 8 feet off the ground and right behind a perfect peeping spot from the back side of a pine tree where he could have gone right up to the pine tree and his eyes shone through, but his body was protected by bushes and a big pine tree. So I'm like, yeah, of course you saw one. So that was a great correlation that someone else saw one. So it was so great that somebody else saw one when I was there. It made it much more believable for the other members of the farm that never saw anything. And didn't know for sure if they really believed in them. Like the other people at the farm with me didn't even know if they believed in Sasquatch. So this was great that this guest had this experience. One other really cool experience that I had in my log. The horses were in the south pasture, which is quite a ways from the house and the barn. It could be like 10 acres away. It's a ways. And I got home from work late at night and I went out to go get them, not seeing them for hours. And I took my beacon light out there and I'm walking down a horse lane that I made so the horses can run up from the south pasture and run up to the water to the barn. I walk down the bypass lane and I'm calling for the horses. Hey, ponies! Come on, ponies! Come get treats, ponies! Shaking the feed bucket to get them to come in so I don't have to walk all the way out there and go get them because that's a long ways to have to walk out there and walk back in. It's a lot easier if they just gallop into me. When I was doing that, I'm scanning the pasture with my beacon light as well, looking for where the horses are because I didn't even know what end of the pasture they were on. I didn't even know what they were doing at all. And all of a sudden, bam, I see eyes right by the driveway, across the driveway from the pasture, in the hot spot where the huge blind was in the neighbor's backyard, right by there. But actually, I hadn't discovered that blind yet. I discovered that blind because I was reenacting this experience I'm going to tell you about right now. So I saw eyes. I could see that there was a tree there. I marked the tree with my eyes so that I could go the next day and go measure how tall off the ground those eyes were. They were 8 feet off the ground, by the way. So I'm watching, I'm like, oh, there's a Sasquatch watching me call the horses in. This is great. Then I see two more in the pasture with me and the horses. They had gone over the fence and they were crouching down on the ground. They were creeping up. And then they went behind a hill. There's a little hill in that pasture that they could hide behind. So they were creeping down on the ground and going behind the hill so they could watch me bring the horses in. And then they peeped up. Their eyes peeped up and I could see them. And they thought I was just looking for the horses. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they could read my thoughts or not, but they were brave enough to come peep anyway, even if they could. So it was great. So they're watching the horses and me, and I'm watching them peep up to watch me. I just kept scanning for the horses, and the one by the big tree stayed there the whole time and watched. And I felt like he was kind of like the older adult. And the two that scurried across were like the two younger ones, like, we're going to go. And he's like, well, I'm just going to stay here. That was great. It was such a surprise to see them actually in the pasture. That was very brave of them to go in the open land across the pasture like that and sneak over to the tree and then peep up and watch. It was just, that was one of my favorite nights. The best one ever. And little did I know, you just never know. Always beware. I guess my advice was to say, bring a beacon light with you in the nighttime and be ready at all times to grab something in it, because you never know when you're gonna. So I have several more experiences from this location to share with you, and those will be in my next video, so stay tuned. You can catch me on my website at hollyburnspsychic.com, or you can email me directly at hollyburnspsychic@gmail.com. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Thank you so much for watching.